Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Roch, um, thank you for meeting with me. We're still looking forward to a letter we wrote to NOAA. And please extend my congratulations to the new Assistant Secretary Administrator of NOAA. But I have several of the witnesses have reiterated that the argument that the law does not provide flexibility when it comes to rebuilding requirements, as you point out, 53% of the stock currently in rebuilding plan have rebuilding timelines that exceed 10 years due to a biology or environmental conditions, and that current rebuilding timelines actually range from 4 to 100 years. That seems very flexible to me, as Dasha mentioned, of the ability to revise building plans based on new scientific information or when a stock is failing to make progress in rebuilding. Would you care to expand on that, elaborate on this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Congressman. Yes, we do believe that there is a great deal of flexibility in the rebuilding timeframes. First, in the timeframes themselves, as you say, there is this perception that there's a 10 years, and there is in the statute, but there are a number of areas that would allow us to extend them based on certain factors, including the biology, the stocks, and others that I mentioned in my oral and written testimony, so that we have roughly half of them are longer, and some of them much longer than 10 years. Once you set the time frame itself, there are circumstances where you can change it based on biological conditions, as we've done a number of times on the Pacific Coast, or you could determine that you're not making adequate progress and revisit that, like we're doing on the East Coast in a couple of occasions. So I do think that there is some flexibility there, but I do have to reflect that the National Academy of Science did just come out with a report that indicated that perhaps there are better ways to look at this. We are looking, if the law stays as written, we are undergoing a National Standard 1 rewrite process in which we're looking at those flexibilities and see if we can take the National Academy of Science recommendations within the laws that's currently structured to highlight the flexibility that does exist.
So my other question is, as you have mentioned before, there are all types of electronic monitoring, from catch accounting to electronic logbooks to VMS, vessel monitoring systems. This bill contains language that would prevent electronic monitoring data from being used for law enforcement purposes. And the way it is written seems to preclude the use of VMS. What would be the consequence of that? And what other types of EM are necessary for compliance, enforcement, and safety at sea purposes?
Well, we certainly use a wide variety of electronic monitoring systems for both enforcement and for data collection. It would be a concern to us in terms of how are you going to implement the Act if you could not use electronic monitoring for such enforcement. And I did read that provision of the statute, and as written, it does seem to do that, although I think that there may perhaps be another interpretation, which might not go so far. So we do use that currently. I know a number of councils, we talked about with one of the members about the importance of trying to develop more electronic monitoring systems. And some of the councils currently are considering uses for this for enforcement purposes. So I do think that the bill as written would limit that ability, and then we would have a concern about how else are you going to enforce the Act if you can't rely on these systems.
All right, and before I ask my last questions, I also want to associate myself with the distinguished lady from Guam, and your office giving greater attention to the Pacific, especially Guam and the Northern Marianas in review. But my final question for you, Mr. Rock, is that we have heard testimony today and over the past year that NOAA is putting too much emphasis on ending overfishing and not enough emphasis on achieving optimal yield from fisheries. While I agree that there should be co-equal goals, isn't the second contingent on the first? Is it possible to achieve OY while overfishing is occurring? optimum goal while overfishing, optimal yield while overfishing is occurring?
I think ending overfishing is important not only for environmental sustainability reasons, but I think the fishermen are achieving a great benefit from being able to demonstrate that they sustainably fish their harvest. I think that they get a competitive advantage from that. They are improving the product not only for the U.S. Markets, but for international markets. It's something we would not want to lightly give away, even if we environmentally could. I do not think that we could achieve optimum yield and allow overfishing, certainly on a long-term basis. Theoretically, it might be possible to do it in a year, but on the long term, you could not do that.
Time of the gentleman has expired.